recording. Go for it.
Hello, and welcome to another week of the Sparring Partners Podcast. My name is Kobe McKinley, and joined as always, Brad Jones.
What up, folks?
Well, we're here once again to cover the wacky world of MMA, this little niche we like to call our home. And before we get going, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure to subscribe if you like it, thumbs up if you like it, share if you like it even more, because all those things help us out big time. And if you want to get a message through to the show, let us know what you think. Don't forget to comment down below. And always, we're brought to you by filmfightfreaks.com, where I do my prelim predictions. And once Bellator starts putting on shows again, I think I'm going to be doing breakdowns of like the main events there. Like I won't be covering the rest of the card, but it'll pretty much just be covering the main event of whatever thing is going on. I haven't really nailed that down yet, but look out for that. Yeah, so this week is a little bit this week's a little bit lighter than normal. It's we have UFC Vegas 18 and then a week of odds and ends, because it wasn't the most active news week. There was a lot. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it was. It was a lot of odds and ends.
Yeah, very slow week. We had an off weekend last week. Slow times.
So what that means, we'll talk about the card on Saturday, and then for the rest of the show, we'll just be kind of bouncing around. Some stories will have maybe a minute or two reaction to, and maybe we'll be surprised by some stories how much we can wring out of those, how much content we can wring out of the sweet reportings from MMAfighting.com and others. All right, so to jump on in, UFC Vegas 18, the Reem keeps it going, number 5 in the world, taking on number 6 in the world, Alexander Volkov. Gut reaction to this fight, Brad. What do you think?
This is a big one. I feel like this is, well, they kind of all are for Overeem at this point on this very last run. They're all essential, because like one really bad loss at this level, that's it. That ends his run towards the title. He's already up against it with the top 2 guys contending for the belt right now, having both beat him very badly. But there's still a chance. There's always a chance for the Reem, man. He's right there, you know. One win, he's one more win away from a title shot. So he's right there. It's very essential for Overeem to get this win to kind of finish out his career with this last push towards the title. For Volkov on the other side, this is like he's had now 2 kind of runs where they've started to like push him up towards the top of the division, and both times he got stopped pretty handily. He got knocked out by Derek Lewis. Then they were like, all right, let's take you back, and you know, you'll fight old NFL boy Hardy. And then they're like, okay, cool, get you another elite guy, and Blades wrestled him to death. So now, but he looked really good, strong finish in that last fight against Harris. So he can get a big win over Overeem. That puts him like top 3, maybe 4 at heavyweight, which is not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think Volkov continues to be the dark horse. He's had a couple tough losses in the UFC, but I mean, I really do think that he's skill for skill just as good as anyone else in the division. It's just that you know, he can be stopped. Clearly, he has been. So, and like you said about Overeem, to kind of circle back to him, I really think any loss really, it's one of those things where, yeah, we're witnessing a final run of Overeem. He stated as much. He but which means every fight is way more important because even a lackluster decision dropped to Volkov, which is entirely possible with how Volkov fights. Sets him back, even if it just sets him back a few fights. Overeem has stated he doesn't have a few fights. He's got, I think, I can't remember the exact number he throws out, but it's like under 4. He really is thinking like maybe a title could make it extend out further than that, but I think this really is the last hurrah from Overeem, and this is a tough test for him because Volkov isn't exactly a young gun. He's tried and tested, just like Overeem is, but yeah, man, a loss for either guy isn't good, but for a loss for Overeem, I don't necessarily want to call it a career ender, but it might be.
This is an interesting point that I just thought of, especially speaking to Volkov specifically. It ties directly into my issue that I have with Stipe being champion. Is Stipe in these last 3 and 4 years of fighting and defending the belt once a year has logjammed the top of the division so badly that there is a distinct pecking order between 1 and 5 of like guys that should have gotten title shots, but they didn't. And so you've got Stipe as champion, Francis clearly number 1, who's knocked out Curtis Blades twice. Then you've got Curtis Blades right underneath that, who's beaten everyone else in the division, beaten Volkov badly, right? Who's clearly the next guy, but he can't get past Francis. And then underneath that, you got Volkov. It's like all these guys, it's like they should have had title shots, but they didn't. And so they're stuck in this top 5 at heavyweight. And I'm like, and then none of them are going to get the next title shot. It's John's. John's not even in this mix. And so it's like, this is what's crazy. You've got over the next month, you have 4 heavyweight main events. You got this. Then you go into Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis. And then you go into Rosenstruik versus Cyril Gahn. And then there's another one that I forgot right now. And it's Stipe and Francis too, obviously, the title fight. It's great. The top of the division is like going crazy right now. And I'm like, man, I just want that title to be defended. I really just want Francis to win it so we can get it defended. Man, it sucks. It's such a good division. And it's like, it was dry for a lot of years. It was like 2010 to like 2015. It was like it was a dusty wasteland of injured Cain Velasquez all the time. And now I'm like, man, there's like young guys coming up. Like, let's go.
Yeah. It's a problem. It's a matchmaking conundrum too, because when you have these guys at the top of the division log jammed to the point where they either fight each other or sit on the shelf, they all end up fighting each other. So when one of those guys does eventually become champion, in a way, they've already cleared out the division because they had to beat the other top guys on their way there, just to, more or less bide time with a division as log jammed as heavyweight. Yeah, man, it's a really tough. I would just expect to see in the next few years a lot of rematches for gold.
We have to. Look at the situation you're in. Like, Francis is everything you just described. Curtis Blades has clearly demonstrated that he's the guy that's the young guy that can beat everyone beneath him. He's been knocked out twice by Francis. It's like, good Lord. And these weren't even for belts yet. And now I'm like, man, at top of the division, if Curtis Blades beats Derek Lewis, I'm like, man, that division's in a real rough spot. Because, like, what do you do with Derek, or what do you do with Curtis Blades? What do you do?
Well, and that's kind of the it's not depressing for Curtis Blades, but all the data we have to work with suggests that it's a pretty good chance he does beat Derek Lewis, and then we're right back where we were.
Yes.
I mean, we have. I don't know if I pulled it for the rest of the show, but um, Rosen Rosenstruck and Gon are apparently facing down in a main event slot. So there's them taking each other out. Um, yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
it's the UFC right now. If I could categorize, there's just so few clear cut divisions right now. Like they're all a mess in their own little way.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavyweight's got too many guys. You have an inactive champ. Middleweight, the champion's gone. Lightweight, the champion is retired, but the UFC doesn't want to be.
Just doesn't want to acknowledge it.
Featherweight, the clear cut number one guy besides the champion has already been beaten by the champion twice. Yeah, I mean, it just goes on. It goes on. I think bantamweight is working roughly how it's supposed to. Flyweight is working roughly how it's supposed to. The women's divisions are just so oppressed by their champions, not through inactivity, but just through like the rinse and repeat cycle of defenses because the skull gap is too large. Yeah, man, it's the whole thing top to bottom, except for like I said, flyweight and bantamweight are kind of working the way they're supposed to. Yeah, and speaking of bantamweight, the co-main event, Corey Sandhagen taking on Frankie Edgar. What's your gut on that?
It's a great fight. Very competitive fight. The stakes are a lot of ifs. I have a lot of ifs coming out of it. But in terms of the fight itself, a lot of people are just saying, like, man, Corey Sandhagen's this new breed. He's a young kid. He's going to just blow Frankie away. He's going to obliterate and dust it. I'm like, man, y'all just forgetting we just saw Corey Sandhagen get taken down and obliterated on the ground. Okay. Frankie Edgar has a very good takedown game. So 3-round fight, very important. This would have typically been a main event 5-round fight, but got 3 rounds to work. I am very excited about it. Now, the stakes with these if questions, right? Corey Sandhagen's another guy that finds himself in a weird position because of that really bad loss to Aljo, and it just happened. So it's like, if Aljo Aljo gets the belt by beating Jan, that's bad news for Sandhagen. He's not getting a title shot and a win over Frankie Edgar. But if he goes out there and dusts Frankie and Jan wins, he could be geared up for a title shot potentially. Now, you were just kind of discussing this division mostly working how it's supposed to. The mostly part is this looming phantom of TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw is cleared to come back. There have been no discussions with the UFC. They don't seem interested in him at all for whatever reason right now. But Peter Yan is out here talking that's the next guy he wants to fight. So yeah, there's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of ifs going around. Now you've got after that draw in flyweight, you've got Cody Garbrandt saying he's just not going to go down anymore. He's just going to stay at 135. He's wanted to fight Aldo. Yeah, it's a wild time at 135. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think 135 is honestly in a pretty good spot. Just the number of options available, because here you have Sandhagen and Frankie Edgar. Edgar, a win over Sandhagen. I feel like it's a no-brainer. He gets a shot if Dillashaw is unavailable, because Dillashaw is not calling for a title shot. He's calling for Aldo, just like Dillashaw is calling for Aldo.
I mean, he shouldn't get it.
No, he should. You're right. He shouldn't. And UFC doesn't seem to. It's just the sport. The sport moves so fast, man. And I genuinely I don't think that the hardcores are the only ones that stick around. And when a fighter is gone for a while, the general public, who primarily makes up the viewers of the sport, the casual people who just tune in to the big card, whatever it is. When a guy's gone for a while, they just forget. They just forget, or they're new. They're new. They're new fans, so they just don't know. Dillashaw's been gone for 2 years, so I think that when the UFC crunches some numbers on what a Dillashaw led pay per view against a dude with a non-white guy name, it probably doesn't trend too hot. I'll just say that.
I also think
So
they have a little resentment of how things ended with him, and then had them having to get bantamweight back together, and then getting double crossed again by Cejudo afterwards, and then having to start over again. And they finally get the belt on somebody now that's actually going to stay at that division and defend the belt. And they're like, look, we just, after 2.5 years, we just got the division working again. And from the issues that Dillashaw caused, I don't think they're very interested in immediately getting back in business with him for the belt.
yeah, I mean, like I said, you have other options too. You have Dillashaw taking on Casey Kinney, so
Cruz.
that's that's what I meant. Cruz taking on Casey Kinney. The winner of that is in a position to take on one of these former champions that's in the that's one thing that I think is really defining bantamweight right now. You have your young fighters on one side, you have your Sandhagens, you have your Aljos, you have your Jans, but then you have the legacy guys. You have Aldo, you have Garbrandt. Garbrandt he's a former champion. You're in legacy camp land.
Yeah.
Dillashaw, former champion, legacy camp land, and Cruz, former champion. So in the top of the division, it's and then you have Casey Kinney as well. So there is a good mix of young guys, and there's a few. I don't have the rankings pulled up in front of me, but there's more young guys who are all going to have the opportunity to get signature wins over former belt holders, which is ultimately a big deal when you're looking to establish yourself in the top of a division, to conquer a guy who's already conquered it all. So, yeah, I think bantamweight's in a really great position, and this co-main event I think is interesting. You brought up a lot of people are thinking Sandhagen is just going to roll through Edgar, and I mean that's definitely a possibility. It's not one that I think is. If I had to split it up into percentages, it's like a 33%. It's like a third likely to have. Like that is the bout could go one of three ways. That's one of the three ways it could go.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I was on um, a betting site that I use that I won't shout out because they don't officially endorse us. But I was on my local betting app this morning. I was looking through the fights coming this weekend, looking at and just kind of scoping out who I was going to bet on, right? And I noticed that Corey Sandhagen is a 4-1 favorite over Frankie Edgar. So any betting peoples out there, there's some decent money to be had on a Frankie Edgar. I personally 4-1. You'll recall Frankie Edgar in his last fight, a main event against what's his name, was also a massive underdog. I won a lot of money betting on Frankie Edgar that night because for whatever reason people thought he had no chance at 135. They're writing the man off. I'm telling you, Frankie Edgar's not done yet. That dude's got some left in the tank. I would not be surprised if Frankie Edgar pulls
of course
off
he has stuff left in the tank.
A Yair Rodriguez type performance where he takes Corey Sandhagen down against the fence and just blasts his face.
Dude, like, am I pretty confident that it's thank goodness it was only 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Am I pretty confident that Edgar is probably going to get clipped in 15 at some point in 15 minutes? Yeah.
Like every fight for the past 15 years.
I'm pretty confident that he's going to get clipped. Am I pretty confident that Sandhagen can then put him away? No, I can't. No, I can't sign off on that. I also don't see him being able to submit Edgar. Who has submitted Edgar?
No one, right?
Yeah, that's it. No one submitted that guy, right? And typically he'll get clipped, but
He'd
they
only been
rallies
knocked out
back.
once against Zombie. That was it. Only time he'd been knocked out.
He got knocked out.
Zombie.
Other one was Ortega.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Right. So he has been shut off before, but it
Is
wasn't as
Corey Sandhagen hitting like that? I don't think so.
huh?
I don't think Corey Sandhagen's hitting like a Korean Zombie.
No, because of the last time he starches Moraes. That was not with punches. That was with the spinning back kick.
Yeah.
That's the type of shit that Edgar runs in on for a takedown.
Yep.
So listen, listen, do what you want with your own money, you bettors out there. I'm not telling you to put it all on Edgar, but I'm saying it'd be pretty cool if you did. Be pretty cool if you did, but I'm not telling you to for liability purposes, and also actually that's it for liability
yeah, that's it.
So let's look down the card a little bit further, right? And we granted, I don't have a ton to say about these next three. I'm not sure if you will either, but I will just kind of one thing I'm very excited for. I have been waiting a very long time for Manel Top A to make his UFC debut. Former risen bantamweight champion. I've been very excited for this guy to make it to the octagon. Have you watched any of his fights?
Very few. Just like highlight footage on YouTube. That's really about it.
Yeah.
This to me, this
hard,
is very
bro.
similar. Yeah, I get the same feeling as when Will Brooks came over to the UFC. It was like it's the same kind of vibes I'm getting. Now, granted, Will Brooks obviously went straight off a cliff, but when he was coming over, there was very high expectations because of his status. But with that being said, I am concerned with the typical UFC debuts, the way they go. I have, especially against somebody as elite as like a top 5 guy in the world. It's basically the Michael Chandler situation all over again. But yeah, let's see what the guys got. We will see.
Yeah, I mean, Pantoja is clearly, I mean, more experienced, but man, Pape he can crack, dude. He hits so damn hard. He has I believe he has a stoppage win over. He has a stoppage win over Uncle Creepy.
Mm-hmm.
He has a stoppage win over one of the Asakura brothers. And I believe he has a stoppage win over. He used to be a UFC staple, Japanese cat.
I don't remember.
Dang, he was in UFC Undisputed 3.
Yushin Okami.
William, huh?
Yushin Okami.
No, Mitsugaki.
Oh, Takeda.
I believe he has a knockout win over Mitsugaki. Actually, I'm just talking. I'm just saying stuff. I'm pretty sure, but I could be completely wrong. Let me know down in the comments below. How's that for engagement with the algorithm? I just Stephen A some shit, dude. I'll just Stephen A. Of course he knocked out. Of course he knocked out Mitsugaki. Of course he did. And I never want to see him fight a woman.
Oh, we will get there.
Then Cody Stamann comes back against Oscar. A squared, as the boys call him. Asker is the number one, according to Tapology, is the number one bantamweight in Indiana.
Yeah, I'm not sure why everyone is worldwide except for he is listed for Indiana. I'm not sure what's up with that.
I mean, just of all places, I
uh,
didn't know he was from Indiana. Diego Fajeda comes back against Benil Dariush. Hey, dude, that's a pretty good fight.
yeah, that should be good. That is the 10 fringe of lightweight.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, very
oh
excited.
yeah. That Diego Fajeda has he not fought since Pettis?
I don't remember honestly. I don't remember.
I don't think he has.
It's very possible.
And then Dariush is on a really stealthy run.
Yeah,
He's just kind of out of nowhere, just like
he just knocked out dude with that spinning back fist.
yeah,
Yeah,
He's on a sneaky little run because I feel like the last time people were really paying attention to Dariush, he lost a couple in a row, maybe even two or three.
yeah, he's another guy that they kept pushing him up towards the top of the division, and then he got knocked out with that brutal flying knee by
Right,
Barboza, and
right.
then he got knocked out on by the debuting little kid that went on to get beat up by Cerrone, Alex Hernandez, who
All
debuted in
right.
his
Yeah.
debut in the UFC and knocked out Dariush, who was like number like 11 at the time or something. It was great.
Mhm.
But yeah, that should be a good fight. I'm pretty excited for that.
And then I should relabel prelims of note like banger alert.
Mm,
So that's usually what I put for prelims of note. Michael Johnson versus Clay Guida.
yeah,
It's
I'm
just a
very
fight,
glad.
dude.
I
Neither
know.
one is chasing. Like Michael Johnson might still say he's chasing a belt. Clay Guida is just out here doing stuff, man. He's just down to clown, and I mean, maybe he'd even say he's chasing a title, but the reality is they're not. These guys are here to put on a show, and I cannot wait to see it.
Yeah, thank God that Michael Johnson is not a featherweight anymore. That was a stupid decision.
Dude, he
It was
looked
a dumb run.
horrible, man. He looked horrible.
Uh,
He looked ill.
yeah, back at lightweight, put on some cool fights. It should be a banger.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, get your drum rolls ready because we're moving on to odds and ends, which is going to take place for the rest of the episode. We're just going to be bouncing around the world of MMA, just talking about stuff. Next, Stephen A. Smith. I don't want to see women fighting in the octagon. So I have his full statement here. I thought about applying some like a clown hat and like a big red nose or whatever, but I just ran out of time.
Yeah,
Um, let's
your imagination.
yeah, I just maybe one of those cool those little party things where they
Yeah, yeah,
like that. Because that noise is about as valuable as what he said here. So I'm just gonna read a statement.
yeah. Go for it.
Okay, so Stephen A speaking here, not me.
To the right.
First of all, I love it. I really wish I captured the context of what he was talking about at first. I forgot to grab it.
Yeah,
If
they
anyone
weren't even discussing this. He was talking about something
It was
completely.
good. That's what I do. I do remember that reading the context that this was just he just was just offered this up
Yeah,
out of context, like not out of context. It had a context, but this was not what they were talking about.
no.
Okay, so let us know down the the comments down below, what the context of this was, what led into this discussion. But here, Stephen A. speaking. First of all, I love it. I think there's an awful lot of women who are incredibly qualified to do the jobs they're doing. Where I jump off the bandwagon. Oh, I remember it. There was sorry, I remember it. There was a new NFL head coach. A
Yeah,
woman was promoted to head coach in the NFL.
yeah,
That's what it was. Okay, I'll continue. Where I jump off the bandwagon is where they try to engage physically. For example, I don't want to see a woman boxing a man. What? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see women in the UFC fighting a man, even though there are some women out there that will kick the dude's butt. When I think about pugilistic sports, I don't like to see women involved at all. I just don't like it. I wouldn't pass. I wouldn't promote legislating laws prohibiting them from doing so, but I don't want to see women punching each other in the face. I don't want to see women fighting in the octagon and stuff like that. That's just me. What I adamantly would be against is them fighting a man. I don't think that's cool. I'm not a proponent of that. Plus, you don't ever want to give men a license to believe that's all right to be physical with a woman. To be quite honest with you, you don't want to do that. I just had to blow off some steam there, because who is saying this? Who is arguing for this? At what point did anyone, like, he's not in opposition to anyone or anything in the world of sports. No one in that's a serious person in the world of sports has ever said, all right, we need to get a woman in there. We also need to get a man in there. Like, other than the super hyperbolic stuff being talked about, like, dude, did Stephen A like step into a wormhole and like hear Joe Rogan talking about like Ronda Rousey 6 years ago, and then came back through the wormhole and was just like, oh, dude, she can't fight Mayweather. No one is saying, why do you offer that? It's just such an idiotic thing to say. Like, I don't know what straw man he thinks he's fighting against, but yeah, Stephen A is gonna Stephen A, dude.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm just so flabbergasted at, like, not one. This is not a trending top. No one is saying, like,
Dude, this is what
well, one day we'll get far enough in the sport where we can have women fight men.
That's my favorite part. It's the statement itself is just like obviously some batshit Stephen A stuff. But my favorite part of all this is he's lobbed the softball question of, oh man, they got a new female coach in football. Isn't that great? And he immediately goes to, hey, I don't want to see a man fight a woman in a cage. It's like, what are you talking about? That has nothing to do with this at all. Who asked for that? No one proposed that. And
It's
in
like
no way.
it's an embodiment of the no one meme. It's like, no one, Stephen A.
Mhm.
I don't want to see women fight men in the octagon. It's a ridiculous, like, so what people are people, I think, in a lot of MMA circles are just taking those ridiculous statements out, and they're really focusing on that middle section where he goes in even further to say he doesn't want women fighting at all, even against non-men. That is seems super dated, man. That's like a can't sign Gina Carano, Dana White type statement. You know what I mean?
It just shows how much of a casual he is, because
Yeah.
that is the ultimate casual stance on this, because that's the way that people looked at it years ago. And it's crazy because he is literally a staple of ESPN. He is fully surrounded by the sports world, but he was so deep into the other sports that like the rise of MMA was just oblivious to him, that by the time that it got so large that it got to ESPN and he now has to be a part of it, he has no clue what's going on. I mean, you can go look at any of his takes when Conor's about to fight and he starts talking about Conor on his show. They're all just ridiculous. Like him and Skip Bayless talking about Conor should go up and fight Israel Adesanya. It was one of their things they were talking about recently. They don't know anything. All right. All they know is here's some popular people that we've seen their highlights. Let's just whatever. Fuck it. We'll just talk about.
It's like they're talking about pro wrestling.
Yeah.
They want fucking Andre the Giant to fight Gold Dust, even though Gold Dust is 5'4" and weighs 120 pounds. Actually, I don't know. I don't know what he was billed at because I don't watch that shit. But yeah, man. I read this sitting on my couch. And yeah, I had to contain myself. It's like peak Stephen A. Who was he talking to? Did he just come up with this on his own? Or was he talking to he was talking to like a crazy person? Or like or another casual who just like at the water cooler was like, "Hey man, you know what I heard? I heard they're going to start having intergender championships." He just overheard Henry Cejudo standing on the street corner saying some shit. Yeah, well, Jesus Christ, dude. We just don't need him. We just don't need him.
That's the thing is Stephen A does not need to be assigned to work any MMA, any UFC cards at all. There are people that work at ESPN that are knowledgeable about MMA. Let them handle it. I would rather see Ariel or Brett or Mark, any multitude of other people stand in the place of Stephen A. Smith and try to discuss MMA on a Connor pay-per-view. So
dude, I mean, just give Kenny Florian someone else's notes and have him do it. All right.
What? Dude, Kenny Florian got the coldest shoulder, man. They fired him so hard. Rehire Kenny Florian.
ESPN, don't forget about plagiarism.
Dude, but it sucks because so many other people do forget about plagiarism.
Yeah, I know.
Don't even care.
Yeah.
Buff has a career.
Yeah, but hey, he still has battle bots, dude.
He got shot. Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. It's one of the things where I think about this often, actually, where obviously we want the sport to be bigger because the more eyeballs, the more the fighters are paid. It's just the way it works. But also, the more people that watch, the more just idiotic takes there are in the world. It's accessible to more people, which is good, but more people have an opinion on it, which is annoying.
Oh yeah. Yes. Watching after a Connor fight or something, watching the casuals in my feeds discussing it's painful.
It's I don't want to be because obviously I love the sport and I want more people to love the sport, but yeah, that's often the case with like a casual fan. Like they don't love the sport; they love a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They love a fighter, and that's all fine and good. I mean, we all have our favorites, but
that's how boxing works. That's what they get from boxing. They're like, oh, I can tune in every time that Fury fights or something, right? I don't need to watch every single card of boxing that happens.
Yeah, I tried to do that with Big Baby, right? Wasn't that his name?
Yep.
Yeah, he unfortunately he got caught riding dirty.
Yeah, he was riding real dirty.
Yeah, he was riding real dirty.
Dirty baby.
Big man. He was a big man with
Big dirty baby.
Big dirty baby. Yeah. Well, we'll move on from good old Stephen A. And Nate Diaz. People are trying to put him into the like we just said last week. Do not rely on this man for any sort of plans towards any grander vision that the UFC is working towards, because he will continually undermine them and make poor decisions as to where he should belong.
Dude, it's perfect.
he's
Not
doing.
only did your theory prove, mine also totally proves true of him angling to get a Connor lightweight title fight. Connor loses. He realizes, oh well, I'm not getting the Connor title fight. I'm not cutting down to 55. Then I'm staying at welterweight. Why would I cut down if I can't fight Connor for the belt? You all just come to me instead. Is exactly what we knew was going to happen.
Yeah, it's yeah, man. You just can't. As much as I love the Diaz brothers and their persona and what they bring to the sport as far as spectacle and as characters that are totally unique. There's no one else like them. Unfortunately, the cost of that is that they don't care the same way the other fighters care. They really don't. And that's why, yeah, you cannot make plans with them in mind when it comes to the UFC title picture. Or really, you can't make plans with them beyond a single fight. If you
No,
were
yeah, that's
fortunate
it.
enough to get them to sign on the dotted line, just imagine that's the last bout you're going to see them every time they walk out.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because he and his brother, super talented, very skilled, but don't seem to want to. They just don't want to grind anymore. They really don't seem like they want to grind anymore as far as professionally. Like they, if you look at their social media, they are constantly working and they're constantly going as far as training and then their strength, their triathlon stuff. But yeah, they don't seem like they really want to jump through the hoops of fighting anymore. So,
To me, though, this
yeah,
is
go ahead.
starting. This is starting to be a problem. I think that maybe Connor kind of just exposed where like they're getting old. They've been young and they've been in positions where they could just take 2 or 3 or 4 years off and just not do anything and then come back for one massive payday fight. But it's like, man, they're in their mid 30s at this point, or however old they are. They're old to the point where it's like you cannot keep jumping in every couple of years. You're gonna get messed up real bad one of these times. Yeah, it's like I don't it's not in their interest the longer they're out. I don't think Nick ever comes back.
No, he
But
shouldn't. He should not ever come back.
no,
He was
he's been
already
away
getting
way too long.
he was already getting lapped when he left. Like
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 eight
I
years
said,
ago.
yeah, man. He was already when you look at it skill for skill, they are very much of their era. Nate Diaz is of his era. He was successful against fighters who fight like him, a guy who was young and relevant in 2009 to 2012. That really great boxing, kick defense, and jiu-jitsu. They didn't have great wrestling because they didn't care if they got taken down. The modern day lightweight has it all. They can kick, they can punch, they can wrestle, they can grapple. They're against the cage type of work is great. They all just spent the last, however many years, whether Khabib had the belt or didn't, under the terrifying range of the Dagestani dominator, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who lifted all the boats when it came to wrestling. Like lightweight wrestling, it is now a prerequisite to be a top in class lightweight is that you can grapple, and especially those grappling positions against the fence when you're down, where Khabib would typically get those handcuffs.
Yeah.
Like these are all positions that the Diaz's just are not equipped to deal with. Outside of the jiu-jitsu realm, when it comes to the wrestling, that's been a hole for the Diaz's for the entirety of their careers. And now every single lightweight is prepared for that. And every single lightweight, the game just moves too fast, man. It just does. It evolves too fast.
Yes, I agree. And so, and looking at this though, the problem is, as we stand right now, the majority of all the biggest fights that Nate could get are lightweight fights.
Yep.
Is like you look at, okay, if he's going to be at 170, obviously he's going to come back for some big blockbuster fight. He has the rematch with Masvidal. That's not in the cards right now, I don't think.
No.
Um, is there is there any other big fights other than him convincing a lightweight to come up and fight him at 170? Because I think he could be like, "Yo, Dustin, come up and fight me at welterweight." Dustin be like, "All right, yeah, sure." Now,
No.
am I
No.
advising that? I am absolutely not advising that.
No. I mean,
But
yeah, as much as Dustin would love that payday, I think the more that we get out from the Connor fight, uh, Poirier, and rightfully so, is focused on that belt. The money.
oh man,
What's that?
I don't know about that. That it's been weird that Dustin did that interview run the other day, and he was like, "I'm not focused on the belt now. I'm focused on getting that third Connor fight, the big third Connor fight." And he was like, "I'm just going to sit back, and you can let Oliveira and Michael Chandler fight for the belt." He kind of turned a corner this week, which is weird
Which
to me.
interview was that?
All of them. He went on a run this week, and he was like, Oliveira and Michael Chandler can go fight for the belt. I want to chill and take some time off, and I want the third Connor fight. And I get it. He's angling for his. He's going with the strike while the iron is hot method, right? Because you roll straight into that third Connor fight. It'll be huge. You can probably do over 3 million pay-per-view buys, right?
Oh, it will be a massive pay-per-view.
It'll be huge. They can sell it. It'll be massive. And then Dustin probably feels very confidently going into that. And then in his mind thinks, right, after this, then I'll get the belt. But yeah, it's a mess right now. And you don't have a slide about the Oliveira and Chandler thing, right? Because we just talked about that right now.
Actually, we'll see about that.
Okay, then
We'll
never
see about
mind.
that.
Ugh.
James Vick retires from MMA.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not aware, James Vick was a fighter in the lightweight division who, for a time, was in the top 10 and was a formidable dude. He went on a pretty bad skid, almost exclusively stoppages, right?
Yep.
And he lost at a regional show, ex MMA, and he announced his retirement. So, I mean, it's not something that is, quite from an objective standpoint, right? He's not a Hall of Famer. He will go down as a guy. He'll go down as a dude who fought. But I just thought, I just wanted to kind of just spotlight it for a second, because win, lose, or draw, his fights were always good.
And this is important. We don't always get to see these like the brutaler side of how some of these guys go out, because most guys in his position, right? You go on a nice little run in the UFC, you work your way up, and then you hit a wall and you go on a little bit of a skid. You get cut from the UFC, and then you generally just fade away and you're never heard from again. But like, I mean, God, man, he was on a really bad. He got knocked out very badly multiple times in a row. Then he goes to the regional scene. His very first fight on the regional scene, gets his whole face just broken. I mean, and it's like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And it's like, God, it's a brutal. It can all go wrong in an instant. Like you can be on a roll. You can be a top 10 guy in the world, and one thing can go wrong in one fight, and that's the end for you, and you never come back from it, and It's
Yeah.
brutal like that.
Yeah, and I think that's that's why success in MMA is so rare, because it takes a mix of all the things to be successful. Like really like hard work, determination, uh skill, um luck, a lot of luck. Um yeah, man. And yeah, like you said, like this is a guy who fought in the UFC, had some really fun fights. He's on more than a few of the current top lightweights highlight reels. And yeah, he steps away. I think he mentioned in his retirement that he felt his entire career he was playing catch up, because he never wrestled, he never did martial arts. He started in his 20s and made it to be a top 10 lightweight in the world, which is impressive in its own right. I believe he ends with a record of 13-6. Um, and 5 of those 6 are just his last 5 fights. And yeah, this is one of the more brutal endings to an MMA career, because normally the regional part of a UFC vet's career is normally they win a few, or they don't fight for a while after they fight in the UFC, they get cut. Then they come back maybe once or twice, win those, maybe drop a decision or something, and then there's like, all right, that was it. Um, but yeah, I mean that's it. I mean nothing monumental, but James Vick, an all action guy, and yeah, wish him the best. Wish him the best, really. Here's one that I don't have a ton to say about. Pretty disappointed actually. Dominic Reyes injured, out of fight against Prochazka, and they're going to reschedule it. So
Yeah, that's a bummer.
yeah, it's a bummer. Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul postponed, and I believe we saw not too long, because I don't want to talk about this one too long anyway. But what there was that report that came out last week or the week before, that there was uh, a weird, how did they word it? An odd lack of interest.
Yes, odd lack of interest is the word.
Yeah, of course there's an odd lack of interest. This was Mayweather being like, how far can I take this to not actually fight like real guys?
Yeah,
How far can I fight a dude who like literally isn't even a combat sports athlete in a professional bout? Hmm. I don't
yeah.
know.
Uh,
The statement from Paul. We're figuring it out. I mean, it was 18 days away. By the way, we were
yeah,
less than 20 days out
yeah,
from this fight. We're figuring it out now. When you're dealing with someone like Floyd Mayweather, who is the most desired, high-paid fighter on the planet, and he operates at a certain caliber, and the people around him want to make sure their talent, their fighter is performing at a certain level. There are a lot of hoops to jump through. There are a lot of people involved. You've only got one shot at it, so you need to get it absolutely 1000% right. And we're just making sure we're doing that. But yeah, I'm still going to beat the shit out of Floyd Mayweather. Or maybe he's going to beat the shit out of me. Point is, it's still going to happen. Are those just a quick on this? Are those wishful words, or you think it still happens?
I mean, they're still going through with his brother fighting Ben Askren, which to me is equally as strange because that was announced after it was
Yeah.
announced that this was postponed. I've been looking at the numbers online. Ben Askren is getting more views on his videos talking about the fight than Paul is, and I'm like, I don't think there's that much interest for that fight either. I think they're like they're really scraping the barrel to try to be like, how much will you got? I'm very interested in how much legitimately a pay per view would sell that is main evented by the brother versus Ben Askren, or
Well,
this one versus Mayweather. I don't think it would do like. You think it'd break 1 million?
no.
I don't see it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? We are not, okay,
That's it. They're selling to the
I'm not
wrong
the
audience.
target audience. I'm
They're
not the
not.
target audience for either of these. They just don't, they're not interesting. They are a circus show. They are not sport. They are not sport. They're doing a sport, but it is not sport.
Yeah.
We don't learn anything from these fights. We learn nothing from these fights. We're not learning about the evolution of when Jake Paul takes on Ben Askren. Even if he starches Ben Askren, what did we learn? What did we like? What do we come away from any result of that fight? What do we do with that? Because it's not like,
Worthless. Worthless.
yeah, it's not sport, and it doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest me. Um, obviously, I like MMA. People hit each other in the head in MMA, but at the end of it, we come out learning some things about the wider landscape of fighting. These are not that.
Yeah, I'm going to say that in the end, these two do not fight Mayweather and Logan.
That's safe.
That is my official vote. And if you guys disagree or agree, comment down below. Let us know. We want to know what you think about this situation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely let us know down below if you think they'll fight. Do you think they'll fight? Do you think they won't fight? Do you think that, you know, would you ever, that I am way more interested. I would be way more interested to see one of the Paul brothers get built in Bellator than do any of this shit.
Of course,
Really.
they
I
don't
mean,
want to actually do MMA.
well, that's the thing is that's what honestly, did you I did watch Helwani's uh interview with the
I
Paul,
watched them both. Yeah, I watched them both.
and he seemed to get actually pretty frustrated with them.
Yeah,
Just the way, because he's just being so disrespectful and also talking out of both sides of his mouth. Like, oh, Ben Askren, Helwani asked him straight up, like, did you pick him because he's not a striker? Like, is that why you picked him? Is because his his route to victory in MMA was a thing you're not even allowed to do.
of
And then
course.
yeah, of course, it's like he danced around answering that, but it's super obvious to anyone who
It's the MMA audience. We're not in.
knows
We're not
anything.
buying this. The MMA audience is not into this at all.
No, it's not. I'm not. I would love to see if you could stop Ben Askren's takedown,
You
because
got
apparently you're some like D1 college wrestler.
that.
That would be interesting. I would be down to watch, like, I for this type of stuff, I would really be down to see some shoot boxing.
Yeah, sure.
That would be pretty cool, but you'd have to do it in Japan or whatever, where there's you know no commissions or whatnot. And then in that case, we get Ben Askren with abs.
Yeah, nice.
Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida in the works. I think that's a pretty good fight. I like that fight. They tend to use Almeida in these spots.
Yes, he has some kind of distant name value. At one point in time, he did main event cards for the UFC many years ago, if anyone remembers. But
Yeah.
he is also at this point in his career a good style matchup to make Sean O'Malley look good again. But you never know; he can still turn around to be Thomas Almeida can be dangerous from
I
time to
mean,
time.
Thomas Almeida hadn't fought for a really long time, right? He had a long layoff.
That is correct, but I did believe he had a rough go of it lately. He's been
Yes, yeah, he did, but I believe he won. Did he win his comeback?
I don't remember. Let us
I'd
know in
have to
the
look
comments
that up.
below.
Yeah, let us know below. Let us know. I'm going to take a real strong stance here. Go Stephen A style on your ass. He did come back and he looked fantastic.
Nice.
Hell yeah. Stephen A's, he knows, man.
Nice.
Charles Oliveira turned down non-title fight against Michael Chandler at UFC 258. And as a side note, right, before we talk about this, a thing I forgot to include, I forgot to put here. UFC 258 gets a late added bout between, dude, the UFC has really been dropping these veteran fights lately, and I'm super into them. Jim Miller versus Bobby King Green.
Yeah, boy.
Dude, that fight is going to be so good.
Yeah.
Cannot wait. Oh,
Yeah.
they just, man. I'm really, I don't even know who to pull for in that fight, to be honest. I love both men for totally different reasons.
Agreed.
But yeah, let's get back to this. Charles Oliveira turned down non-title fight against Michael Chandler at UFC 258. We spoke about this a little bit before the show, but we canned it to save it for right now. What do you let me know what you were gonna say, because I think we agree.
Well, obviously, he did the absolute correct thing by turning down the fight. I will explain by laying out the context of how this is laid out here. So, UFC 258 takes place in a week and a half from as we sit and record this episode right now. It is the weekend following the weekend of Overeem versus Volkov. That pay-per-view happens to be incredibly weak. That pay-per-view was headlined by a title fight of Usman versus Burns. And that was about all it had. It had a co-main event of a rematch between Chris Weidman and Uriah Hall. 2 weeks out from this pay-per-view, it loses its co-main event. The UFC looks at it and is like, man, that pay-per-view is weak as hell. We need a co-main event. There's no fight on the card that's decent enough to promote to a co-main event. They're like, we need to get something on here. There's a big co-main event so we can sell this pay-per-view. They had a similar situation last year in Chicago, and that one had 2 title fights on it. And last second, with a couple weeks, they threw together Cerrone versus Tony Ferguson to try to save that card and sell some more pay-per-views. So this time they tried to do the same thing. I noticed recently on Michael Chandler's Instagram, he had posted, he was like, UFC just called me, got off the phone with Dana White, boom, it's done. I'm going to be stepping in, let's go. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So he reveals to Ariel, not only did he agree to fight, he hopped on a plane and flew all the way to Florida, ready to do a training camp on 13 days notice to fight Charles Oliveira, and then found out Oliveira turned it down, and so he flew back home. Charles Oliveira did the absolute right thing to turn this fight down. This is ridiculous. These are 2 guys. Okay, there are 3 people that have legitimate claims to be fighting for a lightweight title right now. There is Dustin Poirier, and then there's these 2 guys, Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. You do not take 2 of the guys that should be fighting for a belt and go, hey, you 2, fight in a 3-round non-title fight on 13 days notice, and you both need to make 155. Like, how disrespectful.
You know what was impressive about Chandler, too? Because according to him, we don't know if it's necessarily true, because he was also trying to be coy, but I also don't think that he would say this if it wasn't true, because it sounds, macho, chest beady kind of deal. But the UFC just called him and asked him if he would fight at UFC 258. Yeah. Not Oliveira specifically.
Just didn't give him an opponent, just said a fight against a top lightweight. And just by process of elimination, he narrowed it down to either Oliveira or Gaethje.
So and he kind of spelled it out in his interview that, like, and accurately so. And he seems to be one of the few dudes, one of the few dudes in the UFC right now that like totally gets this. He's just like, we are not getting any younger, and we can't do this forever. I can't perform at this level for the rest of my life. I need to get in as many fights as I can in order to get where I want to be
Yeah.
in the amount
Also,
of
I
time
can't
I have
remember who
left.
it was, but another fighter had mentioned that when you do a full fight camp and then you have a fight and it ends rather quickly, if you can get another fight shortly afterwards, you can get two for the price of one fight camp. And
Yeah.
so you don't have to suffer through two fight camps. You get to basically reuse the first fight camp to get two full fights out of it. And that was another thing he was trying to do, because he had mentioned that basically all last year he was in camp and only got to fight just this one time.
Yeah.
But
And
regardless, they
yeah.
should not have taken this fight.
No, of course not.
They are in no obligation to save a sinking pay per view. No, both of them did the right thing, or Oliveira did the right thing, and being like, no, we're gonna act. I'm gonna be. All these people need to be fighting in 5 round main events for belts.
Well, I mean, at the very least, like, yeah, at the very least, like, the UFC should respect them enough to not make them fight on to like call Michael Chandler and be like, "Hey, y- you're you're just a dog, right? You'll fight anything, right? You're not like a professional athlete that like
Right?
has a whole team that formulates a plan
Yeah.
around a particular no, you're just a dog, right? You just fight anybody. It's just it's so disrespectful to
Yeah.
what the athletes actually do in order to fight. It's like the corporate structure of the UFC is a casual. Like that is what they're just like, you need to operate how we think you operate. And we saw it, the UFC does not like this. Specifically, Dana White does not like when the fighters stand up for themselves and make it clear that like, no, I'm like a top tier athlete and I have to do certain things to be successful at this sport that's really hard, and I can't just sign on the dotted line and just like leave the top blank and still be successful. It was the John Jones Dan Henderson thing when he dropped out and Chael Sonnen stepped in, and Jones was just like, "No, of course I won't. It's a completely different fighter. Why would I agree? We work on things specific to the fighter. It's not because I'm afraid to fight Chael Sonnen. It's because I haven't built my camp, my professional camp for a world championship fight around Chael Sonnen." I believe the same thing happened with Demetrius Johnson. I can't remember who it was, but they wanted him to take a fight on really short notice, and I believe he actually did use the words disrespectful. That the UFC wanting him to take, put his title on the line on such short notice was and that's what it is. It's disrespectful for what athletes like. Yeah, a fighter on the regional circuit. Bisping talks about it all the time on Contender Series. He's just like, people at these levels, like, you don't have a camp on the regional scene. You take fights when you get fights. You just say yes all the time so you can get noticed. You're in the top, forget the top 3, top 4. If you're in the top 15 in the world, you should not just be fighting to fight.
Mhm.
That's done. You did that. So yeah, of course they shouldn't have fought at 258, because it's ultimately not a because yeah, while it is one, ultimately it comes down to two men. It's also um the chess behind the preparation is also involved in the result of the fight. What works as far as preparation for this guy or that guy? Yeah, man, you're right. You're totally right. Charles Oliveira was totally justified in fighting Michael Chandler, but on the other side of the coin, Michael Chandler has his reasons. He needs to get in there, and no one wants to fight him.
Yeah.
Also for good reason. I mean, he's a scary, unheralded guy, is what he is. And he's not Russian, but he might as well be.
Yeah.
It's a bad week for women in combat sports. Casey Kenny having some locker room talk with Sean O'Malley about which women fighters he would bang. Megan Anderson, apologies, gets brought up, and I don't have his exact statement here, but Casey's roundabout way, ew, gross, and that's Anderson responds, and then the MMA community, including John Anik, went in on him.
Yeah.
John Anik went. Listen, when John Anik goes in on your ass, you fucked up. And Kenny apologized, but don't you think it's interesting that the corporate structure of the UFC did nothing?
Yes and no. At this point,
it's predictable.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Dude, like, yeah, it's I
have three things about this.
Okay, go ahead.
That were the funniest instances. Okay, one is this fucking guy that does the podcast with Sean O'Malley set this boy up for absolute failure.
He did.
What was Casey Kennedy? So what was he supposed to say? He's on a podcast where they know this podcast is going to go out to thousands of people, to the MMA community. They're just like, yo, dog, you trying to bang that chick that you work with? And he's just like, well, no. And then it's like, okay, obviously, what an idiot. Who says no? But then it's like you're trying to, like, in a weird way, like, you probably think that sounds better, being like, no, it's better than being like, yeah, bang the fuck out of this chick. It's like, no, that's bad. Also, there's no winning. The second thing was, they go over all this while Sean O'Malley is holding his daughter and discussing the fact that he claims he could never become addicted to heroin because he would just not get addicted. He's so much stronger than addiction that he just wouldn't do it. And he's like holding his infant daughter in his arms. It's a mess. The whole thing to me is just a hilarious MMA dumpster fire mess. I mean, Sean O'Malley's turning out to be like a little, like,
that
platinum Mike Perry almost.
God. Yeah. There's some things that oh God, it's just so peak MMA. It is just the whole thing. It's the whole thing. The fact that Casey Kenny didn't just say, like, come on, man, I'm not gonna. Come on.
Yeah, right. Yes.
It's so simple. It's so simple. Like, come on, dude. Like, the cameras and microphones weren't even hidden. Like, he knew he was being. He was there. Not only did he know he was being recorded, he was there to be recorded. Yeah. He knew. So then, and then it's just peak MMA, like my willpower type. Like, just, dude, come on.
I'm stronger than the heroin coursing through my veins.
Dude, it's oh God. It's just like having flashbacks and just like, dude, fucking Gus Johnson in the background. These things sometimes happen in MMA. Like, just the specter of bad decisions just rears its head in MMA, man.
Jesus Christ.
Just numb flashbacks to Platinum Perry sleeping an old man outside a bar and grill. Like, dude, these athletes outside the cage sometimes are just like, oh God.
Yeah.
It's like, people people have brought this story, the Casey Kenny story, up to me, and these are like casuals. Like they're like, what do you think about this? This you've told me before. This is the only sport you like. What about this sport do you enjoy? The misogyny, the thinly veiled racism from top welterweight contenders, or just the insane willpower that these athletes possess that they just will themselves to not get addicted to heroin. I don't know, man. I don't know. This is one I brought up because this is actually this is actually do you think the best thing for Frankie Edgar, right? He hasn't hit a slope, right?
Mhm.
But when you hear a statement like this, um, is the best case scenario that when he does start to slope, he just gets shut off?
Here's the thing, right? When I'm looking at Frankie Edgar, I'm looking at there's certain guys in this game that peak. It may depend on when they come in and when they start, right? But they peak really late in their careers, or for whatever reason, they're able to extend their peak very late into their career. I very much compare Frankie Edgar to a DC type, where DC leaves the sport on a run of fighting for the belt. DC left having contended for belts because he was still fighting at the very highest elitist level. This is just basically what I'm seeing from Frankie Edgar. I'm looking at, like, how old is he at this point? Late 30s, right? Late 30s. Been in the
Uh,
UFC since
Come on, Brad,
2007.
take a strong Stephen A stance. How old is he?
I will tell you for a fact that he debuted in the UFC in 2007. I know that for a fact. So
He was
uh,
on MTV True Life.
the guy's got to be 38, 39. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I, he knows that now this is his second drop in weight class. He knows this is his final run, right? I'm thinking if at some point he gets derailed badly on a path to the bantamweight title and he is not able to fight for it, or he fights for it and doesn't get it, that will be the end of Frankie Edgar. But I still think there is a path for him to still get there. Like it's still very much there. He hasn't hit a wall
Yeah.
yet. But
I think the story of Edgar is really just a dude who, well, again, like many stories in MMA, just perseverance. But I think one of the reasons he's been able to extend, because I would say that he's not peak, but he's about as good as he ever was on any given night. I mean, like his run at lightweight, is well, it's legendary. And the fact of the matter is, by modern standards, he fought two weight classes up that entire time.
yeah,
So as soon as the skill, because he was always skillfully, technically better, which made the size disadvantage a little bit less significant. But every time that skill advantage has started to close out, he's dropped a weight class, which kind of evens it out again
yeah,
because the size advantage isn't there anymore. So now featherweights, every weight class throughout the sport has gotten bigger
oh yeah,
physically, right? So now he's featherweight. You have Max Holloway running around. He's fucking 7 feet tall by comparison. And so he drops again. So now, finally, for the first time, we have Edgar facing dudes his relative size and strength. And yeah, I think that's exactly kind of the formula he's used to drop weight. Although, really, if you take a look at his career, he probably should have dropped to 35 after Aldo. The
oh
second
yeah.
the
The
second
second time, yeah,
Yeah,
You're right.
of course he should have.
Um, you're
But
right. And last thing I'll say on this, more so to your point that you just proved in terms of him steadily staying above the curve with this dropping weight classes. Look at where he's at, and look at the guys that he had his all of his legendary lightweight fights against are at. Look at where BJ Penn is just desolate in the ground, or Gray Maynard, or Ben Henderson over in Bellator just getting knocked out. I mean, these guys that he contended with are like down bad right now. All of them are not. They haven't had great runs at where they are now, and they're at their point in their careers. Frankie Edgar has dropped 2 weight classes and is in contention for another belt. Um, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild that Frankie Edgar has stayed this relevant, and his skill set has adapted enough when it needs to. He hasn't reinvented himself, but he
no.
doubles down on what he does well enough that people can't deal with it sometimes unless you have super elite skill.
Yeah, and he's maintained a speed advantage too,
Oh yeah,
which is really weird because it's usually the first thing to go. You don't see a lot of old lower weight class guys.
yeah,
Really, hardly ever. I mean, a lower weight because the division relies so much on speed and explosiveness. Mostly speed and conditioning. The two
yeah.
things that an older guy is going to lose. Um, yeah, I think it's just a testament to how special Edgar is, and I would argue that he's another guy that modern fans just really don't. They just don't realize it, man. They just don't understand.
Yeah.
Um, they're like, why is this 40-year-old fighting top bantamweight contenders? Like, because he's been here and
Yeah.
he's been in the top. He's been in the top 10 of every division he's fought in
Top
since
five.
the top 5 for what? So he made his debut, what'd you say, in 2007?
2007. Yeah.
Let's say where he really came on the map for me, like big time, was when he just utterly destroyed Sean Shirk at UFC. What card was that? 98? 99?
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
It was somewhere in like the 98 to 101s, somewhere in there. And yeah, from that point on. So like yeah, 2009
Yeah.
to now, he's been in the top 5 of every weight class.
Over a decade.
So great that he's spent over a decade in the top 5, whichever
3
weight.
different weight classes. Anywhere he goes, it's crazy.
Nuts. And this is the last slide actually. Barboza. He is very close to fighting out his contract. He's 1 fight away.
Yeah, Barboza has been talking about this for a year. He has clearly been unhappy at this point, and where he's at in the UFC. I don't know why the UFC doesn't either just release him or just book him against whoever, just like they did with Anthony Pettis, because it's very clear that if they do book him for one more fight, he's not staying. They have had a bad relationship over the past like year, 2 years. So, yeah, at the time, I think it's the end of Edson Barboza's run in the UFC for sure.
Hey man, actually I lied. There's one more slide or 2 more slides. A place where he could potentially go. And yeah, I would love to see him fight out his contract. It would be I'm all about spreading the talent. Not too much because we want to see the top dudes fight top dudes, but for like names that could potentially just bring increased viewership to some of these lower like the lower tier organizations in terms of like budget, not talent, but because I mean, let's be honest, the UFC has the biggest platform by far, and I think when you get to the top 10 of every division, there's like a clear gap between them and most guys outside of the UFC. But I really honestly would love to see like a roster reduction. But it's just never going to happen. You have too many fights to fill. So yeah, the final slide, and we don't have a ton really to say about this, but PFL, the organization everyone thought was just dead in the water due to COVID, they're back. So they have not gone bankrupt. There were rumors that they had gone bankrupt, but there are a few names on here that people can recognize. In the lightweight division more than anything. And Brad, I would recommend if you've never watched Natan Schultz fight, he's good. He's very good.
I have not. I have not ever heard of him before.
He is a multi-time champion at PFL, and he is really, really good. Honestly, I'm kind of bummed. I was just speaking about getting the talent spread out, but I'm bummed he has not made the leap yet. Then we got Pettis in there. Johnny Case is in there. Marcin Held is in there. Clay Collard. Aubin Mercier is in there.
It honestly still blows my mind that he washed out of the UFC already. It seems like way too soon for him.
Mercier?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a couple losses straight, or maybe just one. Because
enough for him to be cut.
Right. Yeah. I think he may have been a dude who fought his way out.
Yeah.
To be honest, because he does train with McDonald at TriStar.
Yeah.
And you do see that occasionally at other camps where a big name guy will leave the UFC, get with another organization, tell all their teammates, "Hey, forget all that.
Deal over here." Yeah.
People are willing to pay for talent, for top level name value talent. So forget about that. You can do that later. Stack up that resume, stack up the bread, and then maybe in a little bit you can go on back. But yeah, the lightweight division is looking to be good, because then I'm seeing a couple. We say it all the time, but we're seeing a couple unheralded Russian-esque names here that probably are not going to be too fun to face down. And then in the featherweight, we have Brennan Loughnane, Lance the Party Palmer, who is also pretty good. He's an alpha male guy. Bubba Jenkins is back in the spotlight. And then the rest of these guys, I would have to watch some footage on them. But yeah. Jason Suarez. Listen, I don't want to go out like Casey Kenny, so I guess I'll end it there. Yeah, Brad, do you have anything else to say to the people?
No. Thanks for sticking in here for this extended, probably hour-and-a-half episode.
Yeah.
If you have anything you want to add to it, comment below. Let us know. You follow us on our Instagram.
Yeah, let us know what strong takes we took that were just dead wrong.
Oh yes, argue with us. Get combative in that comment section, people. All right, we're all about it.
Listen, that's not the kind of community I'm trying to.
Play nice down there. Don't be rude.
Give me some. All I'm asking for is some fact-based arguments, right?
Hey, if you can give us a fact-based, cited argument in the comments, we'll give you a shout out on the show. How about that?
How about that? Yeah. All right, dude. Well, yeah, I guess that's it for us. And yeah, have a good week, everybody. And we'll see you next time for episode. What was this? Was this episode 16 or 15?
Yeah, one of the two.
It was one of the two. Let us know down in the comments.
Yeah, what episode is this? Let us know.
Yeah. All right. Well, peace out, guys. Have a good week.